very much, everyone. I think the subject is Google Analytics version 4, GA4 for short. I'm going to share the screen. Hopefully, I'm going to get this right. Just bear with me. So, and if people can confirm that you are looking at a screen titled GA3, which is normally termed Universal Analytics, so UA, but it's becoming GA4. And it had a rebranding in December 2020. Let's go to the next slide if I can. Yep. Okay, so basically the rebranding goes from that to that. And that's it, folks. Job done. I've kind of said everything there. That's the rebranding. Any questions? But theoretically, GA3 first came in 2012. I got a hold of it in probably about 2016. And I actually went down the rabbit hole of trying to get some qualifications. So after 3 months trial, I got my qualification November 2020. I was really excited. However, GA4 was then announced in December 2020, a month later. So, and GA3 will be sunset in next year, 1st of July. So I've got to do another set of qualifications. There we go. So GA4 is obviously an upgrade, the newest iteration of the reporting platform. It is free. And it's meant to allow website owners or designers to track and monitor traffic coming onto their site, where they come from and what they do and what devices they come and use. So one of the questions I thought maybe asked is, should we go to GA4 right now? Well, it was in beta, it's now out of beta, but it's still missing some features that those who are GA3 aficionados would have thought have been ported across to GA4. It is more technically challenging for non-techie folk, and I put that line in just to make you try and kind of use our services. If I said it was so simple that a 10-year-old could use it, then they wouldn't be using the likes of myself. And still, GA3 gives you the most of the data that you need in your decision making. But because it's going to disappear next year, there is a good point. It is a good time to try and have GA4 as well as GA3 set up, which means you can start collecting data now, so that by the time July 2023 comes, you've at least got 12 months of data that you can then compare. So the question then is, how is it different? Why have they changed? Why is it different? Well, first of all, if you were searching for whether you've got UA3 as opposed to, as opposed to GA4, then in the code, GA3 has that UA in front of its code number, but GA4 doesn't. It's just numbers. So that's a techie kind of angle. But there are three main differences, and I've just bullet pointed them here. First of all is tracking. Secondly is the interface. And thirdly is the usability of it. And I'll come to each of these very quickly later on. But GA3 has always used what is called page view tracking. And that really was to see where people went on their website. They tracked them from the home page to the jobs page to the about page, etc., etc. However, GA4 does away with that completely and is now event-based tracking. And I'll just expand on that shortly. The interface, well, there's not much of a change here. It's still in a blue-gray theme. It will be familiar to those that use GA3, but when you actually go into granular detail and look at the menus and the reports, you'll see that there is a fair bit of difference. And usability, It is much more friendly. It uses artificial intelligence as a good guiding tool. So it almost guides you through the questions you should be asking, which is good. So that's a very important update, I think, using machine learning and artificial intelligence. So go back to the first bullet point, tracking. What is an event? An event is where a visitor has interacted with your website. So not just clicked on a page, but actually gone down the page and looked at different things on it, which is quite a useful tool. Common examples, if there's a video on the homepage or a page, you'll be able to notice that. If it's clicked to go to an outbound link, then that's noted. Clicking a button, downloading a PDF, anything you have that is interactive on your pages is now going to be recorded and monitored as by default. So that's in essence what that tracking, that's the main change. So it allows you to go into greater detail, which is what we all kind of want. And it has this new terminology, data stream. In GA3, we used to, if you had a mobile app, you used to have a separate bit of software to enable you to cope with that. But now it's all kind of linked together and it's much more intuitive. So that's a good thing. It's really kind of brought analytics up to the 21st century, or the 2023s. So, and theoretically, it's a bold statement, but it should be better for almost all businesses. A nice blurry image, because I'm not asking you to look in depth, but that's a typical view that you get, which we probably all familiar with, and won't cause a major problem for those who have been using GA3. You'll still see roughly the same look. But on the right hand side, you'll see a little symbol indicating there's artificial intelligence going on in what are called insights. The usability angle is probably a bit different, and it's a drag and drop. You drag things in depending on what you're looking at, and you can see that for me looks completely different from GA3. And that's where it takes, you need probably to know a little bit more about how it works to make it more effective. But on the right hand side, and some of you probably know, you can see funnels. You can see where people come in at one page and then they might go immediately to another page, but then there's a funnel down to another route if someone's engaging with the site. So that's a useful tool. So how is it different? The first point really is there are a lot of new metrics, and the terms they're using are engagement rate, percentage of visitors who visited more than one page or had a conversion, so they've clicked on a buy me now button, or spent more than 10 seconds on the page. So this probably in GA3, we all may be aware of what's called a bounce rate. People that come to the site and they immediately go off. Well, for people that spend more than 10 seconds, that's when it's going to trigger now. So the idea of bounce rate is going to go completely. It's not going to be part of a metric that you will see anymore. A terminology engaged session is where they visited more than one page or had a conversion event or spent more than 10 seconds on a page. And then there's an average engagement time, which, as we probably all know, we have your website on, but then we move to another tab. So if you go to another tab, look for the weather or bbc.co, and then you go back, you'll have an average of how long you were actually on your tab, which is a good tool. The second thing that is different is there are much more integration with cross-platform tracking. For those who use more than just a website, they might have a web app. But it's going to be fairly niche, I think, for most businesses. What things are missing? Mentioned it once, the bounce rate, that's going to go. The session duration and time on a page, that's going to go, because up till now, if someone went off to look at the weather, that was still incorporated in the average. Well, now, because it shuts down when you go to a different tab and only starts again when you go back, you're going to get a much more reliable figure. But also, they are only going to track and record for up to 14 months, which gives you your yearly comparison, but not much more. I think especially in Europe, they decided that having someone's data from the year dot, it was just not compatible with European rules. So now you're only allowed to have it up to 14 months, which is fine. So should you use GA4? This is only my opinion, but I won't recommend it as your main website tracking tool as yet. So I would suggest that you have both. Most of you may have GA3 up and running. You just add GA4 to it. So you can flip between the two. You can be still comfortable with GA3, but you can then play around with GA4 in this interim period. Let's have a look. I just added this because obviously analytics is only one of the tools in what's called the marketing platform. These are the other ones on there. For a kind of a geek like me, these kind of make me kind of moist, if that makes any sense. But yeah, these are the other platforms that I use. So, okay, question is, would you recommend, what would I recommend? Now, I'm going to kind of throw a little curveball in, because I'm now going to recommend a Microsoft product called Clarity. I don't know if anyone has heard that, but it's only been around a very, very short time. So I've kind of hopped out of one bed and I got a foot into another. Microsoft Clarity is a user behavior and website debugging tool, and it's providing insights into a different way of how users interact with your website. And through it, you can learn about insights into whether your website is effective, whether the pages you put on, the buttons you put on, where you put them on the page is being intuitive to a user. So it kind of focuses on the actual user experience. And normally we've had to pay for software that from third-party companies to do that. But now they've given us this tool, which is free. So why not? It's once again, it's late in the game because it's relying now on machine learning and deep AI, which has got to be good in this day and age. And it adds to Google Analytics, so they can work seamlessly together. So it's a win-win all round. That is a typical dashboard. So it's kind of clean. It's quite a clean looking look. There are more benefits to it. There are more different metrics than Google Analytics. It is a different tool completely. It also gives you heat maps. Now, we had to pay for a third-party software company to do this, but in this image, you can see where buttons are and how much engagement is being placed on those, logged in real time. But this one's an interesting one. Each interaction with your website is recorded in live video. So you can look at every single interaction. Say someone goes to your website for 2 minutes, you can see exactly how they've scrolled, where they've scrolled, and what they've done. And that's a bit scary at times, but if it's there, you can use it. And this is just a little kind of flowing video showing how it's done. Obviously, the website of Clarity will give you further details. So this is my top tip. Microsoft Clarity and Google Analytics joined together in perfect harmony